When it comes time to do my annual review and to plan out the year to come, one of my favorite parts about this is to sit back and think about what productivity apps I'm currently using and, what new ones can I play with to help me be more productive in the year to come. Over the past couple months, I have started to use 7 brand new, or at least new to me, applications that are sure to make 2023 a way more productive year than 2022 ever was. So let's jump into that right now. What are the 7 new apps that I'm using that will help you be more productive in your year to come? The first of these is Hookmark for macOS. Hookmark isn't a new app. It has been around for a couple of years, but the end of 2022 was the time that I finally realized that I had a place in my life for this app. Hookmark is a bit hard to describe if you haven't seen it in action and haven't tried it out. But basically, it's an application that you install on macOS that allows you to create links between different files and applications. Say, for instance, I get an email from a coworker asking me to do something. Well, a couple of things need to happen with this. First of all, I want to make sure that I create a task in my task manager, but I also want to be able to go back and reference that original email if I need to when I'm going to do the task that they asked me to do. Well, this used to be pretty difficult, but now with Hookmark, I can just go and create a link to that original email in my mail application and add it directly to my task manager. And therefore, when I'm going to work on a task, I can just click on that link and it'll open the email in the original application. Now, I'm sure that sounds cool to you, but the really cool thing about Hookmark is that you can do that for all sorts of applications and files all across your Mac. And supposedly in 2023, they're going to be bringing this to iOS as well, which will make it even better. Over the past couple of years, I've been using these new outline-based note-taking applications, which are, sometimes a bit difficult to store documents and stuff inside. So instead, I can just keep those all on my local Mac file system and create a Hookmark link to each of them, and then just add that link to my note-taking application so I can always go to the file in question if I need to. Hookmark and a local or cloud-synced file system have largely replaced what I was previously using DevonThink for. In fact, this year I've decided I'm moving completely away from DevonThink and am no longer going to use it. Next up is Obsidian, and while Obsidian is definitely not a new application, the Canvas plugin is, and it is what is making me use Obsidian more on a daily basis. Now, if you follow the knowledge management space at all, I am sure you have seen clips of this in action. And frankly, rightly so, because it is really cool. The Canvas plugin for Obsidian allows you to create graphic representations and connections between your notes in Obsidian. Last week I talked about Apple's new Freeform application. Canvas is very similar to it, and you may be asking, hey, if I praised Freeform so much, why am I sticking with Canvas and not just using Freeform? Well, simply because it offers more. Every single connection and representation on the Obsidian Canvas that you make can be its own note with a whole bunch of content there within. But that's not all. It's not just connections between notes. I've also found that I'm starting to use Obsidian Canvas for what I would previously use MyNode for, that is creating mind maps, or just creating graphical representations of databases and such not, like my Tana system, which I'll get to in a little bit. The third new productivity app for 2023 that I really think you should check out is the Spark desktop email client. Now, once again, Spark is not a new application, but Spark version 3.0 most certainly is. Now, it's a subscription app, and you may be asking, why would you pay a subscription for an email client? Well, from my standpoint, Spark 3.0 has greatly streamlined one of my least enjoyable tasks on a daily basis, and that is dealing with email. I just hate email, and Spark makes it very manageable. Over the past couple months that I've been using Spark, I have really fallen in love with it. I love the way that it automatically categorizes all incoming messages as newsletters, notifications, or the more important stuff I need to actually try and get to on a daily or weekly basis. Not only that, the blocking features work really, really well. Now, there are other applications or even paid services such as Sanebox that do the exact same thing as Spark. Well, I figure if you would pay for those services, why not just pay and have it built right into the email client right from the get-go, so you don't have to worry about any configuration or setup or whatnot. Spark has made email a whole lot less stressful for me. Now when I feel I need to process my inbox, I can just go in there, look at all the important things, and save those notifications or newsletters, to handle on a weekly, if not monthly basis. They're just not that important, and Spark gets them out of the way. That brings us to application number 4, and that is a new browser for macOS called Arc. Throughout 2022, the makers of Arc were really hyping it as the next killer browser. Frankly, they were hyping it so much that, I was a little bit put off by that. How much could you revitalize the modern web browser? It is what it is. Well, I was a bit mistaken. Just over 2 weeks ago, I decided to give Arc a spin. I had tried it a couple months ago, but, didn't really stick. This time, though, I said, no, I'm gonna go all in. It took 1 day for me to be hooked. At any given time when I log into my Mac, I am almost always greeted with at least 10 browser windows and 35 tabs apiece, if not more. I've always been like this. I don't want to lose that important information I have. I'll deal with it later. But at the same time, those tabs always cause a little bit of stress, a little bit of friction. Just, that mess, it creeps me out, it irritates me. It's always nagging underneath my skin. I do like to have just a clean Mac to work on, even though I want all those tabs saved around for later. Arc has really found a way to simplify this workflow. All within a single browser window, I can separate things into various spaces, kind of like the spaces on macOS that you've probably gotten used to. I now can have some tabs associated with a rescue time workspace. I have some tabs associated with a Signum workspace. I have other tabs associated with a YouTube space, and still others for personal projects. Arc then does a really good job about intelligently archiving tabs that you haven't visited in a while, but don't worry, they're not lost. You can always revisit them. They're stored in your archive for later, but they're just not around, visually cluttering up the screen. The really cool thing that I found about Arc, though, is that each of these spaces that I've talked about, all contained within one single browser window, if you so choose, is that each one of them can be assigned a different profile. So a couple of videos ago, I talked about OpenIn, which is an application I used on macOS that would allow me to jump back and forth between different Chrome profiles for work, for Signum, for my personal YouTube channel, and stuff like that. Well, I can do the same thing all within Arc. This is really great. It's simplified my workflows, and OpenIn worked really, really well. It was a little bit buggy from time to time and got a bit confused. I haven't had that confusion occur with Arc because, anytime I click on a link, it will open in Arc. I can just send it to a different space with a different profile. No problem whatsoever. Now, those are just the things that made Arc really stick for me. There are a whole bunch of other features of things that I love about Arc, and maybe I'll make a future video on it at some point in ways in which you can use it to be more productive this year. But without any doubt, within that one-day period, I knew that Arc was going to become my new default browser, which is really saying something for me because I am a Safari guy. That was always my default browser. But now I'm using Arc everywhere. Well, at least on macOS. But I hear there's Arc coming for iOS later this year. The other really cool thing about Arc is that the browser Chrome gets out of the way when you don't need it. This means when you're using it for some web application, you can really focus on the web application and it feels like a native desktop app. Which brings us to application number 5, and that's Readwise Reader. Now, Readwise is a service that allows you to collect clippings and highlights from Kindle books or Instapaper documents and all sorts of stuff like that. Has been around for definitely over a year now. Readwise Reader is their new application that just went into public beta about a month or so ago. And what it is a new take on the Reader application. Basically, Reader wants to be your single one-stop location to consume all the content that you care about. Whether it's from RSS feeds, they all bubble up right inside the application, or you're just browsing Twitter, or I guess Mastodon possibly, or any other article on the web, you can just send it right into Reader so that you can read it later at your convenience. Besides the collecting and the curation side of the application, there is of course also the reading experience itself. Readwise Reader allows you to take notes and highlight way easier than Instapaper ever was. It has definitely become my go-to reading application, replacing both NetNewsWire for RSS subscriptions as well as Instapaper as a general read-it-later service. That brings us to application number 6, and that is Raycast. Raycast is, well, frankly, just about everything. At its most simple, it is an application launcher like Alfred for macOS. But it is so much more than Alfred. If you just care for launching applications or maybe performing a quick shortcut, you should probably stick with Alfred. It is a bit quicker and a lot easier to use. But if you really want to dig in and, play around with all those power features, Raycast has a ton of extensions. And when I say a ton of extensions, I mean a ton of extensions. Way more than Alfred and way more targeted at power users. It also allows you to very easily, if you're a programmer, write scripts for Raycast. I've already written a couple of my own to allow me to quickly add notes to my personal knowledge management application, or to take calendar items and also add those to my personal knowledge management application. I really have only touched Raycast at the surface level, and I'm really looking forward to diving more fully in 2023. Now, 6 applications down, the last one, number 7, is by far the killer application for me for 2023, and that is Tana. If you're a longtime viewer of this channel, you know that I was a huge fan of Roam Research. I used it incredibly heavy for 2 years and was even a subscriber of their Believer plan. However, in September, I got access to Tana, and that changed my world. Tana takes everything that I loved about Roam Research. At its heart, it's an outliner, allowing me to take quick notes in outline format. I have the daily nodes, I have the linking, it's great. However, it also adds in the features from Notion that were a real hindrance for Roam Research. Yes, you heard that right. Tana combines the best of both Roam Research and Notion into one perfect, yes, I said perfect application. And it also works great in the Arc browser. See application number 4. Or whatever. I'll be releasing videos on my workflow in Tana throughout the year to come, so stay tuned if you want to see those. But as a very high-level overview, Tana takes the concept of tags and supercharges them into something they call super tags. What a super tag is? Well, it's the tag that you know and love, but it's supercharged. Every single tag has attributes associated with it. So you can have a person tag, and that person can have the attributes such as location, where they live, phone number, relationship to you, and all sorts of other things. Every single node that you tag with person then gets those attributes. This allows you to have the database-like functionality that was always missing from Roam Research, which really has allowed Tana to become the killer personal knowledge management application for me. I tried really, really hard to do project and task management in Roam Research, and it just didn't work because it didn't have these features. With Tana, it has been a dream, and I got my system set up throughout September and October. In November, I was hit with one of the busiest months of my life, and you wanna know what? It didn't fall to pieces. That says something really about Tana and the system that I've set up. If you want to know more about that system, stick around, I'll get to talking about it someday. But until next time, see you later. Bye. Besides the consolidation, collecting, no, that's not the right way of saying that. I'm gonna redo that sentence.